Jake Morrison stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council building on Nexus Prime. The room was huge, with walls that reached up so high he could barely see the top. Strange lights floated in the air, casting blue and green colors across the floor. Around him sat the most powerful beings in the galaxy, but none of them looked at him with respect. The Zephyrians sat on the left side of the hall. Their bodies looked like living crystals that changed colors when they moved. They had been part of the council for over 2,000 years. When they spoke, their voices sounded like wind chimes in a storm. Today, their leader Zektar glowed with a cold blue light that meant he was not happy. On the right side sat the massive Corvan delegates. Each one was as big as a small building, with thick gray skin and 4 arms. They had been space travelers since before humans learned to make fire. Their deep voices made the floor shake when they talked. Their leader, General Thoxon, had scars across his face from 100 battles. Behind them floated the veil-touched, beings that looked like ghosts made of silver mist. No one knew how old they were or where they came from. They spoke directly into people's minds without moving their mouths. Their thoughts felt cold and distant like winter wind. Jake had been Earth's ambassador to the Council for 3 years. In that time, he had learned that being human meant being treated like a child among adults. Every request from Earth was denied. Every proposal was laughed at. Every time humans tried to speak, the other species would talk over them or ignore them completely. Today was supposed to be different. Today, Jake was asking for something that could save millions of lives on Earth. A plague had started spreading across the planet 6 months ago. Human doctors and scientists had tried everything they knew, but nothing worked. The disease killed quickly and spread faster than they could stop it. Earth needed the advanced medical technology that the Council possessed. Jake stepped forward to the center of the hall. His voice echoed in the vast space as he spoke. "Honored Council members, I come before you today to request immediate assistance for Earth. Our people are dying from a plague that we cannot cure with our current technology. We know that the Council has medical knowledge that could save them. We are willing to trade, to work, to do whatever is needed to help our world." Zektar's crystalline form shifted to a darker blue. When he spoke, his voice was sharp and cold. "Ambassador Morrison, humanity has been a member of this council for only 3 years. The medical technology you request has taken our species thousands of years to develop. It is sacred knowledge, not something to be given away to every species that asks." General Thoxon's massive form leaned forward. His voice rumbled through the hall like distant thunder. "Humans are too emotional, too quick to anger. You have not proven that you can handle such powerful technology responsibly. What if you use it to create weapons instead of cures?" One of the veil-touched sent thoughts directly into Jake's mind. The words felt like ice forming in his brain. "Your species is young and reckless. You fight wars over small pieces of land and different ideas about gods. How can we trust you with knowledge that could change the balance of life and death?" Jake felt anger rising in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. "We are asking for help to save lives, not to create weapons. Our people are suffering and dying while we stand here talking. Every day we delay, thousands more will die. Surely compassion is something all advanced species should understand." Zektar's form flashed bright red for a moment before returning to blue. "Compassion must be balanced with wisdom. Humans have shown neither patience nor wisdom since joining this council. You make demands rather than requests. You expect immediate answers to problems that require careful thought." Other council members began to speak, each one finding new reasons why humanity should not receive help. The Corvan complained about human military activities. The veil-touched questioned human intelligence. Smaller species that Jake had never heard of before today stood up to voice their concerns about giving anything to the primitive Earth dwellers. Jake listened to each speaker with growing disbelief. These beings called themselves the guardians of galactic peace and prosperity, but they were willing to let millions die rather than share knowledge they already possessed. They spoke of wisdom and patience while people on Earth gasped for breath in hospital beds. Finally, the voting began. Each species cast their decision into a glowing sphere in the center of the room. Red lights meant no, green lights meant yes. As each vote was cast, Jake watched the sphere fill with red light. Not a single green glow appeared. Zektar rose from his crystal throne. His voice carried the final judgment of the council. "The request from Earth for advanced medical technology is denied. Humanity has not yet proven worthy of such sacred knowledge. Perhaps in a few hundred years, when your species has matured, we can discuss this matter again." Jake stared at the alien leader in stunned silence. A few hundred years. The plague would kill everyone on Earth long before then. He looked around the hall at faces that showed no emotion, no concern, no hint that they cared about the suffering they had just condemned millions to endure. Something inside Jake broke in that moment. All the patience he had shown, all the diplomatic words he had learned, all the hope he had carried for 3 years crumbled into dust. These beings did not see humans as equals. They never had, and they never would. Jake's voice was quiet when he spoke, but every word carried across the silent hall. "Then humanity formally withdraws from this council. We came here seeking partnership and found only arrogance. We asked for help and received only lectures. We offered friendship and were given contempt." He turned to look at each group of aliens in turn. "You call us young and reckless, but you are old and heartless. You speak of wisdom while choosing cruelty. You claim to be advanced while acting like spoiled children who refuse to share their toys." Jake began walking toward the great doors of the hall. His footsteps echoed in the silence. Behind him, he could hear whispers and surprised sounds from the council members. They had not expected this response. At the doorway, Jake turned back one final time. "Humanity will remember this day. We will remember who offered help and who turned away. We will remember who treated us as equals and who saw us as servants. Most of all, we will remember that when we needed you most, you chose to let our people die rather than risk your precious secrets." The great doors closed behind Jake with a sound like thunder. In the hall, the council members sat in shocked silence. They had just witnessed something none of them had expected. A species had voluntarily left the council. In 3,000 years of galactic government, it had never happened before. Zektar's crystalline form flickered with confusion. "Let them go," he said finally. "Humans are too emotional to be part of civilized galactic society anyway. They will come crawling back when they realize how much they need us." But as Jake's ship lifted off from Nexus Prime and headed back toward Earth, none of the council members could shake the feeling that something important had just changed. They had dismissed humanity as weak and primitive, but the determination in Jake Morrison's voice suggested they might have made a serious mistake. The galaxy would soon learn just how serious that mistake had been. 5 years had passed since Jake Morrison walked out of the Galactic Council chambers. In that time, the galaxy had grown quiet in the sectors where humans lived. Trade ships that once carried goods between Earth and alien worlds stopped coming. Diplomatic messages that used to flow back and forth every day simply ended. It was as if humanity had vanished from galactic society completely. On Nexus Prime, the council members occasionally wondered what had happened to the emotional little species that had stormed out in anger. During slow moments between more important discussions, some delegates would mention the humans with mild curiosity. Had they learned their lesson and decided to focus on their own small corner of space? Had they given up their dreams of joining galactic civilization? Most council members assumed that humanity had simply accepted their place as a minor species and retreated to lick their wounds. They could not have been more wrong. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty, humanity's newest and most advanced warship. Around her, holographic displays showed information that would have shocked the council members if they could see it. Shipyard production numbers, fleet deployment schedules, technological advancement reports, and military training statistics filled the air with glowing data. The Liberty itself was a marvel of human engineering and determination. 5 years ago, no human ship could have traveled faster than basic hyperspace speeds. Now the Liberty could cross the galaxy in days rather than months. 5 years ago, human weapons were simple laser cannons and missile systems. Now the Liberty carried energy weapons that could punch through any known shield technology. Commander Ryan Brooks walked up to Kate with a datapad in his hands. His face showed the serious expression that had become common among Earth's military leaders since the day humanity left the Council. "Admiral, the latest production reports from all facilities are ready for your review." Kate took the pad and scrolled through the numbers. What she saw would have terrified the aliens who had dismissed humanity as primitive and weak. "The Mars shipyards completed 50 destroyers this month?" "Yes, ma'am. The new automated construction systems are working better than we hoped. The Titan facilities finished their first dreadnought yesterday. The USS Defiance is already running space trials and should be ready for fleet duty within the week." Kate nodded and continued reading. In 5 years, humanity had built more warships than some council species possessed in their entire fleets. The numbers were staggering, but they represented only part of the transformation that had taken place since Jake Morrison's fateful walk from the council chambers. Dr. Lisa Chen approached from the science station, her arms full of research reports and technical specifications. As humanity's leading expert on alien technology, she had been one of the busiest people in human space for the past 5 years. "Admiral, I have the latest results from the reverse engineering projects." Kate turned to face the scientist who had become one of the most important people in human space. "What do you have for me, Doctor?" Lisa activated a holographic display that showed detailed schematics of alien technology. "We have successfully analyzed and improved upon every piece of council technology we encountered during our 3 years of membership. The Zephyrian energy manipulation systems, the Corvin shield generators, the Veil-touched navigation computers, all of it." She pointed to different sections of the display as she spoke. "But we did not just copy their designs. We made them better, faster, more efficient, more powerful. The energy weapons we developed based on Zephyrian technology are 30% more powerful than the original versions. Our shields using improved Corvin designs can withstand twice the damage load." Ryan leaned forward to study the technical data. "How did we advance so quickly? The council species took thousands of years to develop this technology." Lisa smiled for the first time in weeks. "Because they developed each technology separately over long periods of time. We had examples of everything at once. We could see how different systems worked together and find ways to improve the connections between them. Plus, we had something they never had." "What was that?" Kate asked. "Motivation born from anger and determination. When someone tells you that you are not worthy of their knowledge, you work twice as hard to prove them wrong." Every human scientist, engineer, and technician working on these projects remembered the day the council condemned our people to die. That memory drove us to work harder and think more creatively than we ever had before. Kate walked to the main view screen and looked out at the stars. Somewhere in those distant points of light, the council members were going about their daily business, completely unaware of what humanity had accomplished. They had made the fatal mistake of underestimating a species that had climbed to the top of the food chain on a planet where everything tried to kill everything else. "Admiral," Ryan said, joining her at the view screen, "Project Exodus is ahead of schedule. All major shipyards are operating at full capacity. The training programs for our new fleet crews are producing excellent results. In terms of pure military capability, we are now stronger than any single council species." Kate continued staring at the stars. "Stronger than any single species, yes. But what about all of them together?" Lisa looked up from her technical displays. "That depends on whether they could actually work together in a real crisis. The council is designed for debate and discussion, not for quick military action. Their fleets operate under different command structures with different technologies. They have never had to fight as a unified force." "Let's hope we never find out," Kate said. But even as she spoke the words, she knew that humanity's isolation could not last forever. Eventually, something would happen that would bring human space back into contact with the wider galaxy. When that day came, the galaxy would discover that the primitive, emotional species they had dismissed had become something entirely different. Ryan pulled up another set of displays showing fleet positions across human space. "All task forces are in position and ready for immediate deployment. Patrol groups are maintaining security around our border systems. Deep space reconnaissance units are monitoring council territory for any signs of hostile activity." Kate studied the tactical information with satisfaction. Humanity had not just built ships and weapons. They had created a military machine that could respond to threats faster and more effectively than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Every lesson learned from human history, every tactical innovation developed during centuries of warfare on Earth, had been adapted for space combat. "The council members think we disappeared because we were ashamed of being rejected," Kate said quietly. "They believe we are hiding in our corner of space, licking our wounds and regretting our decision to leave." She turned back to face her officers. "They have no idea that we used their rejection as fuel for the greatest military buildup in human history. They do not know that every insult they threw at us made us more determined to prove them wrong. They cannot imagine that the weak, primitive species they dismissed has become the most powerful military force in this part of the galaxy." Lisa began collecting her reports and technical data. "Admiral, There is something else you should know. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected some unusual activity in the Outer Rim territories. Long-range sensors are picking up energy signatures that do not match any known Council ship designs. Kate's expression became more serious. Unknown ships beyond Council space? That could mean first contact with a new species, or it could mean trouble. We are not sure yet, Lisa continued. The readings are too faint and too far away for detailed analysis. But whatever is out there, it is big and it is moving toward Council territory. Ryan checked his communication systems. Should we warn the Council about potential threats in their space? Kate considered the question for a long moment. The smart thing to do would be to maintain their isolation and let the Council handle their own problems. But if a real threat was approaching, the consequences could affect all life in the galaxy, including humanity. Continue monitoring the situation, she decided. Gather as much information as possible about these unknown contacts, but do not make any contact with Council space yet. If they are facing a real threat, they will have to prove they deserve our help. As the Liberty continued its patrol through human space, Kate could not shake the feeling that the galaxy was about to change in ways that no one could predict. Humanity had spent 5 years preparing for the day when they would have to defend themselves. They had built fleets, developed new technologies, and trained crews for every possible scenario. But deep in her heart, Kate knew that their greatest test was still coming. When that day arrived, the galaxy would learn what happened when you dismissed humanity as weak and primitive. They would discover that the species they had rejected had become something far more dangerous than they ever imagined. The Council had made humanity leave. Soon they might be begging humanity to come back. The first attack came without warning. Long-range sensors on the Council border world of Kepler Station detected massive energy signatures approaching from the galactic rim. Before the operators could even send a warning message, the sky filled with ships unlike anything anyone had ever seen. These were not the clean metal vessels that most species built. These ships looked alive, with curved surfaces that pulsed with organic light. They moved through space like hunting animals, twisting and flowing in patterns that defied conventional physics. When they opened fire, their weapons tore through Kepler Station's shields as if they were made of paper. The station's commander, a veteran Corvin officer named Bractel, had only enough time to send one desperate message before his station was destroyed. Council alert. Unknown hostiles attacking from the rim. Ships are biological in nature. Weapons unknown. They are coming for the core worlds. The message reached the Council chambers on Nexus Prime 8 hours later. By then, 3 more border systems had gone silent. The invaders were moving fast, faster than any Council fleet could respond. They struck hard, destroyed everything they found, and moved on without stopping to claim territory or prisoners. Council leader Zektar's crystalline form flickered with colors that showed deep concern as he addressed the emergency session. Fellow Council members, we face a threat unlike any we have encountered in 3,000 years of galactic civilization. These attackers, who call themselves the Hegemony, have destroyed 12 systems in the past 24 hours. General Thoxon stood up from his massive seat, his forearms gesturing as he spoke. Our border fleets engaged the enemy at System 447. The battle lasted less than 1 hour. Every Council ship was destroyed or disabled. The enemy ships adapted to our weapons and tactics faster than our commanders could respond. A veil-touched delegate sent thoughts into the minds of everyone present. The mental voice carried fear that chilled the air in the chamber. These beings do not seek territory or resources. They consume everything they find. Planets, ships, space stations, even the stellar energy from stars themselves. They are a force of pure destruction moving toward the heart of our civilization. Zektar activated the main display in the center of the chamber. Holographic images showed the path of destruction the Hegemony had carved through Council space. Each red dot represented a system that had been attacked and consumed. The pattern was clear and terrifying. The invaders were heading directly for the most populated and important Council worlds. Our military analysts estimate that at their current rate of advance, the Hegemony will reach the core systems within 6 standard days, Zektar continued. Our fleets are being deployed to establish defensive positions, but early engagement suggests the conventional tactics are ineffective against their adaptive bioships. Admiral Thexon of the Corvin Navy stepped forward with tactical reports in his massive hands. Honored Council, I must report that our losses are catastrophic. The enemy ships seem to learn from every battle. Weapons that work in the first few minutes of combat become useless as their ships adapt and evolve countermeasures in real time. He activated displays showing battle footage from the destroyed border fleets. The council members watched in horror as their most advanced warships fired everything they had at the organic enemy vessels, only to see their weapons become less and less effective with each shot. Meanwhile, the bioships returned fire with weapons that seemed to grow more powerful as the battle continued. They are not just adapting to our weapons, Admiral Thexan continued. They are adapting to our tactics, our formations, even our command decisions. It is as if they are learning to think like us, but faster and more efficiently than any biological mind should be able to process information. A smaller council member, one of the insectoid hive minds, clicked and buzzed in their native language before switching to standard galactic speech. Our collective consciousness has analyzed the attack patterns. The hegemony ships operate as a single unified intelligence. They share knowledge instantly across their entire fleet. When one ship learns how to counter our weapons, all ships immediately possess that knowledge. The chamber fell into worried silence as the implications of this information sank in. They were facing an enemy that became stronger and smarter with every battle. Traditional military doctrine assumed that you could wear down an enemy through repeated engagements, learning their weaknesses and exploiting them over time. But how do you fight an enemy that learns faster than you do? Zektar's crystalline form shifted to deep purple, a color that indicated he was about to make an important decision. The Council Science Division has been working around the clock to analyze captured hegemony technology. Dr. Velen, please present your findings. A Zephyrian scientist activated another set of displays. Her crystalline form sparkled with nervous energy as she spoke. The bioships are not built, they are grown. Each vessel is essentially a living creature that has been modified for space travel and combat. They can heal damage during battle, adapt their weapon systems, and even evolve new capabilities based on what they encounter. She pointed to detailed scans of hegemony ship components. The truly terrifying aspect is their reproduction rate. Our observations suggest that they can create new ships by consuming matter from destroyed vessels and space stations. Every system they destroy provides resources for building more ships. They are not just an invasion force, they are a self-replicating plague that grows stronger with every victory. General Thoxon's scarred face showed the strain of commanding forces against an impossible enemy. With respect to the Science Division, this information does not help us stop them. Our fleets are being destroyed faster than we can deploy them. At this rate, we will run out of ships before we learn how to fight them effectively. The debate that followed was unlike anything the Council had experienced in its long history. These beings who prided themselves on careful deliberation and measured responses were being forced to make desperate decisions with incomplete information. Every minute they spent talking was another minute that brought the hegemony closer to the core worlds. A junior veil-touched delegate, one who rarely spoke in council sessions, sent a tentative thought to the assembled members. Perhaps we should consider reaching out to other species for assistance. There may be military knowledge or technologies outside the council that could help us. The suggestion hung in the air like a poisonous cloud. Council members looked at each other with expressions ranging from horror to desperation. The idea of asking for help from non-council species went against everything they believed about their superiority and advanced civilization. Zektar's form flickered through several colors before settling on a dim blue that indicated deep thought. What species would have military capabilities advanced enough to help us against this threat? Most non-council civilizations are centuries behind our technology levels. The junior veil-touched delegate's mental voice grew stronger with conviction. What about the humans? They had considerable military potential when they left the council 5 years ago. Their species has a long history of warfare and tactical innovation. The chamber erupted in protests and objections. Council members who had spent years dismissing humanity as primitive and emotional could not accept that they might need help from the species they had rejected. But as the arguments continued, the harsh reality of their situation became impossible to ignore. Admiral Thexan's voice cut through the noise with the authority of someone who had seen too many ships die. I do not care about politics or pride right now. I care about stopping an enemy that is consuming our civilization. If the humans have any knowledge or capabilities that could help us, we need to contact them immediately. Zektar looked around the chamber at faces that showed fear, desperation, and wounded pride. The council that had once dismissed humanity's request for medical aid was now considering begging for military assistance from the same species. The irony was not lost on anyone present. "Very well," Zektar said finally. "We will compose a formal request for humanitarian assistance from the United Earth Federation. We will ask them to provide whatever military aid they can spare to help defend galactic civilization against the hegemony threat." As the council worked to draft their message to humanity, none of them could shake the memory of Jake Morrison walking out of their chambers 5 years earlier. They had told him that humans were too young and emotional to be trusted with advanced technology. Now they were about to discover just how much that young and emotional species had accomplished in their years of isolation. The message was transmitted toward human space with maximum priority. All they could do now was wait and hope that humanity would be willing to help the same council that had once left their people to die from plague. They had no idea that their desperate request was about to bring them face to face with a force more powerful than anything they had ever imagined. The message from the Galactic Council reached Admiral Kate Sullivan while the human fleet was conducting training exercises in the Centauri system. She stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty, reading the formal diplomatic request that had just arrived through quantum communication channels. The words were carefully chosen, polite but desperate, asking for humanitarian assistance from the United Earth Federation. Kate read the message aloud to her senior staff, her voice steady but tinged with irony. The Galactic Council formally requests immediate humanitarian assistance from the United Earth Federation in addressing the current crisis situation with the hegemony threat. We appeal to the shared values of all civilized species in the face of this unprecedented danger, to galactic peace and stability. Commander Ryan Brooks listened with a bitter smile on his face. Humanitarian assistance. Not military alliance, not partnership, not even recognition that we might be equals. They still cannot bring themselves to ask us for help as one military force to another. Dr. Lisa Chen studied the tactical data that had been included with the Council's request. Her scientific mind quickly grasped the scale of the threat they were describing. The bioships they are fighting sound extremely dangerous. Adaptive technology that learns and evolves during combat. Self-replicating vessels that grow stronger with each victory. This is not just a military threat. It is an existential crisis for all organic life in the galaxy. Kate walked to the main view screen and stared out at the stars where human ships were practicing combat maneuvers. For 5 years, humanity had prepared for the day when they might need to defend themselves against the species that had rejected them. They had never imagined that those same species would come begging for help. "Admiral," Ryan said, joining her at the view screen, "what are your orders?" "Do we respond to their request?" Kate considered the question that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. Every instinct told her to ignore the Council's plea and let them face the consequences of their arrogance. They had been willing to let millions of humans die rather than share their medical technology. Why should humanity risk their lives to save species that had shown them nothing but contempt? But as she looked out at the human fleet, Kate remembered why she had joined Earth's military in the first place. It was not to seek revenge against those who had wronged humanity. It was to protect innocent lives and defend civilization against those who would destroy it. The hegemony threatened not just the Council species but potentially all life in the galaxy, including humanity. Send our response, Kate decided. Humanity will provide assistance to defend against the hegemony threat. But we do this on our terms, under our command structure, using our tactics and strategies. Ryan nodded and moved to the communication station. "What level of response are you authorizing, Admiral?" Kate turned back to face her staff, her expression showing the determination that had driven humanity to become a galactic power.
"Full fleet deployment."
"Every available ship, every trained crew, every piece of advanced technology we have developed in the past 5 years. If we are going to do this, we are going to do it right." The orders went out across human space with unprecedented speed. Ships that had been on patrol duty received immediate recall commands. Crews that had been on leave were ordered back to duty stations. Supply convoys loaded with weapons, ammunition, and spare parts began moving toward the rally point that Kate had designated. What the Council did not expect was the scale of humanity's response. They had asked for humanitarian assistance, perhaps hoping for a few ships and some technical advisors. What they were about to receive was the full might of the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen, Admiral Sullivan's fleet began dropping out of hyperspace. At the besieged Council stronghold of Kepler Station, exactly 18 hours after receiving the request for help, the alien sensors that detected the arriving human ships immediately began having problems. There were too many contacts to count accurately. The computer systems kept revising their estimates upward as more and more ships appeared. The first wave consisted of 50 destroyer-class vessels, sleek and deadly ships that moved with precision the Council forces had never witnessed. They formed perfect attack formations while still emerging from hyperspace, a feat of navigation and coordination that should have been impossible. The second wave brought 30 heavy cruisers, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a small fleet of traditional ships. Their energy signatures showed weapon systems based on technology the Council recognized, but had been improved beyond anything they thought possible. The third wave was the most shocking. 10 massive dreadnoughts emerged from hyperspace like ancient gods of war. Each ship was larger than anything the Council had ever built, bristling with weapons and defensive systems that made their crystalline forms glow with barely contained power. But the fourth wave was what made the Council observers realize they had seriously underestimated humanity. Carrier groups appeared, deploying fighter squadrons that moved through space like schools of deadly fish. The fighters themselves were marvels of engineering, fast enough to dodge heavy weapons and armed with systems that could punch through any known armor. Admiral Sullivan's voice cut through the communications chaos as human ships coordinated with the remaining Council forces. Council Command, this is Admiral Sullivan of the United Earth Federation Fleet. We are here to provide assistance against the hegemony threat. Please transmit tactical data and current enemy positions. The Council communication officer, a nervous Zephyrian named Colon, could barely find his voice to respond. Admiral Sullivan, we show nearly 1,000 human vessels in our sensor range. Is this your entire fleet? Kate's response was calm and professional. This is our immediate response force. Additional ships are being held in reserve pending assessment of the tactical situation. The number hit the Council observers like a physical blow. 1,000 warships had arrived as humanity's immediate response. How many more ships did they have? How had a species that left the Council in shame and anger managed to build such a massive fleet in only 5 years? General Thoxon, who had been commanding the desperate defense of Kepler Station, stared at the tactical displays showing human ship positions. Admiral Sullivan, we appreciate your assistance, but I must warn you that the hegemony bioships are unlike any enemy you have faced. They adapt to new tactics and weapons faster than conventional military doctrine can account for. Kate's voice carried a note of confidence that the Council forces had not heard in days of desperate fighting. General Thoxon, humanity has been studying the tactical data you transmitted with your request for aid. We believe we have strategies that will prove effective against adaptive enemies. Before anyone could ask what those strategies might be, the sensors detected new contacts approaching the system. The hegemony had arrived for another assault on Kepler Station. This time, however, they would face something they had never encountered before. Dr. Lisa Chen's voice came over the fleet communication channels as she transmitted targeting data to all human ships. All units, the bioships you are about to engage learn and adapt from combat experience. Our tactical doctrine accounts for this capability. Execute Plan Alpha 7. The human fleet moved with precision that amazed the watching Council forces. Instead of forming traditional battle lines, the ships spread out in complex three-dimensional patterns that seemed random but were actually carefully calculated formations designed to confuse and overwhelm adaptive enemies. Commander Ryan Brooks coordinated the attack from his position on the Liberty's bridge. All ships engage Pattern Delta 7. Focus fire on designated targets. Remember, these enemies learn from prolonged engagements, so we hit them hard and fast before they can adapt. The hegemony bioships that had seemed unstoppable against Council forces found themselves facing tactics they had never encountered. Human ships used hit-and-run attacks, constantly changing their approach angles and weapon frequencies. Instead of the prolonged battles that allowed bioships to adapt, the humans struck quickly and overwhelmed their targets before moving on to the next threat. The battle for Kepler Station lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the hegemony force had been completely destroyed while human losses were minimal. The Council forces that had been fighting a losing battle For days watched in amazement as the human fleet systematically dismantled an enemy that had seemed invincible. Admiral Sullivan's final transmission of the battle was heard throughout Council space. All hegemony contacts destroyed. Kepler Station is secure. The United Earth Federation stands ready to continue operations against this threat. In those words, the galaxy heard something new. Not a request for permission, not a plea for acceptance, but a simple statement of capability and determination. Humanity had returned to galactic affairs, but they had not come back as the desperate petitioners who had left 5 years earlier. They had returned as a power that the galaxy could no longer ignore. The aftermath of the Battle of Kepler Station sent shockwaves throughout galactic civilization. In 6 hours, humanity had accomplished what the entire Council military had failed to do in weeks of desperate fighting. The hegemony force that had seemed unstoppable was nothing but drifting debris, while the human fleet remained largely intact and ready for continued operations. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the conference room aboard the USS Liberty, facing a group of council leaders who had arrived to personally thank their unexpected saviors. The atmosphere in the room was strange, filled with gratitude mixed with uncomfortable awareness that the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted dramatically. Council, Leader Zektar's crystalline, form flickered with colors that showed deep respect, something he had never displayed toward any human before. Admiral Sullivan, the Council is eternally grateful for your intervention. Without your fleet's assistance, the hegemony would have broken through our defenses and reached the core worlds. Kate nodded politely, but her expression remained neutral. We are glad we could help defend innocent lives, Counselor. The hegemony threat was too dangerous to ignore, regardless of past differences between our peoples. General Thoxon stepped forward, his massive form somehow seeming smaller than usual. Admiral, I must admit that I underestimated human military capabilities. Your tactical innovations and fleet coordination were unlike anything we have encountered. How did you develop such effective strategies against an adaptive enemy? Dr. Lisa Chen, who had been observing the meeting from the side of the room, answered the question. General, humanity has a long history of warfare against opponents who could learn and adapt. On Earth, we fought against each other for thousands of years, constantly developing new tactics to counter the strategies our enemies learned. We simply applied those same principles to fighting bioships that adapt during combat. Commander Ryan Brooks added his own observations. The key was not giving them time to adapt. Human military doctrine emphasizes overwhelming force applied quickly and decisively. We studied your battle reports and realized that the hegemony ships were adapting because your engagements lasted too long. We changed that. The Council representatives exchanged glances that showed they were beginning to understand the scope of what humanity had accomplished during their 5 years of isolation. These were not the same beings who had left the Council in anger and shame. They had become something entirely different. Zektar's form shifted to a warmer blue color as he broached the subject that everyone in the room was thinking about. Admiral Sullivan, the Council would very much like to discuss renewed diplomatic relations with humanity. We realize that our previous interactions may not have reflected the respect that your species deserves. Kate's smile was polite but carried an edge that made it clear she had not forgotten the past. Counselor, humanity appreciates the sentiment, but we are not interested in rejoining an organization that views us as junior members. We have moved beyond seeking approval from others. The words hung in the air like a challenge. The Council leaders who had once dismissed humanity is too young and emotional to be trusted now found themselves in the position of petitioners asking for favor from the very species they had rejected. Ryan stepped forward with a datapad containing terms that had been prepared during the voyage to Kepler Station. However, we are interested in establishing new relationships based on equality and mutual respect. We have some proposals that might interest you. He activated a holographic display that showed a map of the galaxy with clearly marked boundaries. Humanity will establish autonomous control over this sector of space, including all systems currently under Earth Federation governance, plus the buffer zones necessary for our security. Trade agreements will be negotiated on an equal basis between sovereign powers. Zektar studied the proposed boundaries with growing concern. The human sector would be larger and more strategically important than the territory controlled by most Council species. This represents a significant portion of known space, Admiral. The Council would need to consider the implications carefully. Kate's voice remained calm but carried an undertone of steel. Counselor, we are not asking for permission. We are informing you of reality. The human fleet that saved your civilization is more than capable of defending our chosen territory. You can choose to recognize our sovereignty and establish beneficial trade relationships, or you can choose to test our resolve. General Thoxon's military mind immediately grasped the implications of what he was hearing. You are saying that humanity has become a galactic power equal to the Council itself. No, General, Kate replied. We are saying that humanity has become a galactic power that chooses its own path. Whether that makes us equal to, greater than, or simply different from the Council is for history to judge. Dr. Chen activated additional displays showing technological specifications that made the Council representatives gasp in amazement. As a gesture of goodwill, we are prepared to share certain technologies that could help defend against future hegemony incursions. Improve shield generators, adaptive weapon systems, and tactical coordination protocols. But the most important proposal came last. Ryan updated the holographic display to show formal treaty language. Most importantly, we require official acknowledgement that humanity's withdrawal from the Council 5 years ago was justified by the treatment we received. Any future agreements must recognize that our departure was the result of Council actions, not human inadequacy. The room fell silent as the Council leaders absorbed the full scope of what humanity was demanding. They wanted not just recognition as equals, but acknowledgement that the Council had been wrong to treat them as inferiors. It was a bitter pill to swallow for beings who had prided themselves on their superior wisdom and advanced civilization. Zektar's crystalline form cycled through several colors before settling on a dim purple that indicated deep thought and reluctant acceptance. These terms would represent a significant change in how the Council operates. We have never acknowledged that our decisions regarding member species were incorrect. Kate stood up, indicating that the meeting was coming to an end. Counselor, you have never faced a situation like this before. You can evolve your thinking to match new realities, or you can continue operating under old assumptions that no longer apply. She walked to the view screen that showed the human fleet maintaining patrol positions around Kepler Station. The choice is yours. Humanity will continue to defend our interests and protect innocent lives regardless of what you decide. But if you want our friendship and cooperation, it will be on terms of mutual respect. As the Council delegation prepared to leave, Zektar made one final attempt to salvage some of his species' wounded pride. Admiral, surely you understand that the Council was acting with the best intentions when we denied your medical request 5 years ago. We were trying to preserve the balance of galactic civilization. Kate turned back to face him, her expression showing the weight of 5 years of human loss and determination. Counselor, millions of humans died from that plague while you debated whether we were worthy of help. Your intentions are less important than your actions, and your actions told us everything we needed to know about how the Council viewed our species. She paused, letting the words sink in before continuing. But humanity learned from that experience. We learned that we could not depend on others for our survival or our future. We learned that respect must be earned through strength, not begged for through submission. Most importantly, we learned that we are capable of far more than anyone, including ourselves, ever imagined. The Council delegation left the Liberty in thoughtful silence, carrying with them the terms that would reshape galactic politics forever. Behind them, the human fleet continued its patrols, 1,000 ships serving as a visible reminder that the galaxy had a new power to contend with. Dr. Chen joined Kate at the view screen as they watched the alien shuttles depart. Do you think they will accept our terms, Admiral? Kate smiled as she looked out at the human ships that had announced humanity's return to galactic affairs. They will accept them because they have no choice. We did not return to beg for acceptance in their council. We returned to show them that their approval was never necessary for our success. Commander Ryan approached with communication reports from across human space. Admiral, we are receiving messages from dozens of non-council species requesting diplomatic contact. Word of our victory over the hegemony has spread quickly. Kate nodded with satisfaction. Good. Schedule meetings with any species interested in establishing trade relationships or mutual defense agreements. It seems we have more friends in the galaxy than we realized. As the USS Liberty prepared to return to Earth, Kate reflected on the journey that had brought humanity to this moment. 5 years ago, They had been dismissed as too young and emotional to be trusted with advanced technology. Today, they had saved galactic civilization and established themselves as a power that could no longer be ignored. The 1,000 warships that had returned to Council space carried more than weapons and shields. They carried the message that humanity would never again accept second-class treatment from anyone.